Okay, it is 4 o'clock, so we'll call to order the February meeting of the Bloomington Board of Park Commissioners. So first, could we have the roll call, please, Kim?
Kathleen Mills,
Here.
Les Coyne, Israel Herrera,
All right, and then we have the consent calendar, which is made up of approval of minutes from the last meeting, claims submitted, non-reverting budget items, business report. Business, it shows that it's on. Am I on? Okay. Business report. Whoa. Okay. And a little bit of declaration of surplus. So we've all had these since last week, thanks to Kim. So we have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. All right, and then we next move on to Section B, which is our public comment period, and we obviously have some items on the agenda that people might be especially interested in commenting on. So I just want to clarify, if you haven't been here before, even if you have, so the public comment period is specifically for items that are not on the agenda. So as examples, we've had people come and say, not on the agenda, why can you smoke in this park right next to my house? Or, how can this playground be fixed up in this park in my neighborhood? So things not on today's agenda. So if you have any comment of that type, not pertaining to an agenda item, you can come up to the podium. And if you have a comment related to an agenda item, we will certainly welcome that just a little bit later on in the meeting. So, yes, please. And I think there's a sign-in sheet there so we can get your name as well.
So is the timer running?
Oh, yes, sorry, I failed to mention. Yeah, we're going to allow people 2 minutes tonight, and I think Kim's going to run the timer for us since yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, happy to. So my name's Thomas Westgard, and I live in Bloomington. And I I asked about the timer because last time I was here, I complimented you on having the system of the timer because there was some issue with people feeling like they got different amounts of time, and this person didn't get enough and that person got more. So this really makes it a lot more fair, and I appreciate that. And also I think there was a louder bell that, just helped clarify things. So the thing about the timer and the bell is that makes it, there's, the fair rule that everybody follows, like the 2-minute thing, like everybody gets 2 minutes. That's how it ought to be. There are basic rules that we all follow. So with that in mind, the opposite of that is a content-based restriction, which can either discriminate based on the viewpoint or the subject matter. For example, the law regulating the subject matter of speech would be a city ordinance that forbids all picketing in front of a school except for labor picketing, because then that would be, allowing the unions or anti-union people to speak, but not letting people who, have opinions about smoking or something. So that would be content-based. So that it favors one subject over another in deciding who's allowed to speak. So an example of a law that regulates a speaker's viewpoint would be the policy of a government official who permitted pro-life proponents to speak on government property but banned pro-choice proponents because their views is that, yes. I'm done.
Okay, all right, thank you. It's Thomas, right? Yeah, thank you.
Is it starting? Okay, hi. My name is Alex Goodlad, and I would just like to thank the Parks Board for having Kathleen Mills moderate. And well, not Les Coyne, who interrupts his own meetings and threatens to shut it down. Thanks so much.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Чарльз Бонс. Декламирую стихотворение Анны Ахматовой. 21-я ночь, понедельник, очертания столицы во мгле. Сочинил же какой-то бездельник, что бывает любовь на земле. И от лености или со скукой все поверили, так и живут. Ждут свидания, боятся разделки и любовные песни поют. Но иным открывается тайна, и почиет на них тишина. Я на это наткнулась случайно, и с тех пор все как будто волна. I came here to participate in this meeting as a citizen of Bloomington. I read you a rather strange poem by Anna Akhmatova. There's a lot going on that is perhaps reminiscent of totalitarian regimes in this society. Breaking of rules, the shattering of free speech. It's also really rather lunchbox stuff compared to what people have really suffered in the world. But we walk down certain paths and live certain lives, and it's important to respect order and process. So I'm going to continue speaking for 25, 4, 3, 2, well, not 1 second, 20 seconds. I guess there's a lot you can say. I never really find myself at a loss for words. But I think this Parks Board needs to consider its role in the world and its role in this city. And I suppose that's my time.
All right, thank you. All right, I don't see anyone else at the podium for the public comment period, so we'll move into the other business. And just by way of explanation, I know there may be some people here interested in C16, the Community Farmers Market Rules of Behavior. We do have that later on the agenda just because the Parks Board, or the Parks Department rather, can't function unless a lot of these other items are taken care of in a timely way, getting paid to local businesses and putting on local events. So we do have some of those first to ensure that we can get those done. So first up is the review of partnership agreement with Buskirk Chumley Theater Management. Paula McDevitt.
Yes, I am here this month to recommend approval of a second amendment to the 2019 Buskirk Chumley Theater Management Partnership Agreement. At the January meeting, I presented the first amendment. They have had a change in leadership, and the management team was currently interviewing for their new director, so it's been difficult to finalize the 2020 agreement, so we want to keep the conversation going. We did meet a few times with them in February. We plan to meet with them and their new director, who has just been hired, and we'd like to welcome him. So we will be bringing the full 2020 partnership agreement to you at your March meeting and introduce the new director. So this amendment is just to keep in place the 2019 partnership agreement with Buskirk Chumley Theater Management.
Okay, so sort of keep us on a status quo, and then we'll meet the
Absolutely.
new director. Okay, all right. So do we have a motion on this one?
Right, I move.
All right, all those in favor of the partnership agreement? Oh, I'm sorry. Any public comment or question about this item?
Tom, oh, sorry, did you have the timer again? Okay. Thomas Westgard again. On C1, the review and approval of the partnership agreement with the Buskirk Chumley Theater Management with Paula McDevitt. We all know and cherish the United States Constitution dearly, so in honor of the Second Amendment, I will read the Second Amendment to the contract, which is, Second Amendment to the Partnership Agreement. This amendment entered into this blank day of March 2020 by and between the City of Bloomington, Indiana, its Board of Parks Commissioners, which use the term Parks Board later in the contract, and its Redevelopment Commission, which you just shortened to commission, or collectively all of that is the city, and BCT Management, Inc., an Indiana nonprofit corporation, and that's called BCTM, witnesseth, whereas parties entered into a partnership agreement for management of the Buskirk-Chumley Theater with an effective date of January 1st, 2019, the original agreement, and whereas the parties entered into a first agreement to the original agreement that extended the term of the original agreement until March 4th, 2020, which was, just a couple days ago. And whereas the parties are continuing their negotiations regarding the new partnership agreement for 2020, and whereas it's in the public interest that the term of the original agreement be extended further until April 1st, 2020, or until a new agreement is reached, now therefore, it is agreed between the parties hereto that paragraph 3 of Article 2, duration of agreement, shall be amended to read as follows. This agreement shall be in full force and effect from January 1st, 2019 until April 1st, 2020, unless replaced by a new, thank you.
Hi, how are you? I am firmly against an interpretation of the Second Amendment that does not provide for the creation of a well-regulated theater. According to the amendment, whereas parties entered into a partnership agreement for management of the Buskirk-Chumley Theater with an effective date of January 1st, 2019, original agreement, and whereas the parties entered into a First Amendment to the original agreement that extended the term of the original agreement until March 4th, 2020, and whereas the parties are continuing their negotiations regarding the new partnership agreement for 2020. I don't understand whereas in the context of regulation. There is no provision for the creation of a theater militia or for the fact that our rights should not be infringed in this delicate and pressing matter. And I have another full minute, so I think, what do you guys think I should talk about? Well, I did take a lot of time this last summer in the market. It was quite an enlightening experience. I spent probably 5 months looking at white nationalists every single day, every single Saturday, and that's a problem for me. It's been a problem for a very long time, and I can't believe that there are so many people sitting right here looking at us with, what is this, feigned interest? Is that what it is? Because we don't tolerate the intolerant. That's the problem. That's what we've lost. We don't tolerate intolerance because we therefore lose our own tolerance because those will overwhelm us. Is that clear?
Thank you. I would just like to also comment, if there's to be, let's say, 10 or 15 or even 20 minutes before the vote of each one of these other items, I mean, that's fine. There's public comment. We would ask that it would be relevant to the item that we're actually voting on. And also, if we don't get to all of these items, then what's essentially happening is we're hijacking the other things on the agenda, which okay, so perhaps you don't care about Bloomington soccer or tennis or invasive species or artisan contracts. Well, I understand that. We have a place on the agenda to discuss that, and we're fully expecting to have plenty of comments at that place. But it does, I guess I'm frustrated to think that these other things may not actually even happen in the next couple of months if we can't get to their approval this evening. So I just put that out there, and I would ask people, while we're voting on a particular motion, if you could make your comments, please, relevant to that motion. Go right ahead.
Hi. I have a little, not so much a statement, but just some relevant theater history that I think we should take into account with this item. So for the first 25 years of its existence, the Indiana Theater was racially segregated. African American patrons were only permitted to sit in the theater's balcony, while white patrons could sit anywhere. The situation changed in 1948. The theater's manager, A.B. Clark, made a phone call to, and I apologize for butchering this name, but George Taliaferro, a popular African-American football player at Indiana University. Clark invited Taliaferro to bring a date to the Indiana Theater and sit wherever he liked. Because of Taliaferro's status as a sports hero, nobody challenged his right to sit anywhere in the theater. The next week, he sat on the main floor again, this time with another African-American football player and their dates. Again, no one challenged them, and thus the Indiana Theater quietly became racially integrated. In the late 1960s, College Mall Cinema opened up on Bloomington's east side, creating suburban competition for the Indiana and other downtown movie theaters. This was a period of general decline for the city's downtown, and the future of Indiana became even less certain when the last of the theater's original owners, again, apologies, Nova Vonderschmidt, died in 1974. The Indiana Theater was spared a closing when the Illinois-based movie chain Carasoti's Theater stepped up and brought the theater in 1976. Under Carasoti's theater management, the Indiana Theater continued to show movies for another 20 years. In January 1995, that theater closed, and 2 months after that, the company's East Side Cineplex went from 6 to 11 screens. So I mention this because the fate of the downtown building was in question until 1995, when Carasoti's donated the theater to the Bloomington Arts Council, and I don't have time, unfortunately, to finish all this, but I think this sort of past is the kind of thing that we need more awareness of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to read off the exact rules from the customer and vendor interactions. The following conduct is prohibited in the market activity areas: picketing, demonstrating, yelling, excessive and unreasonable noise making. I guess unreasonable noise making means singing, because that's what we got arrested for last year, if I remember right. Conducting, hindering the flow of pedestrian or access to a vendor, and or other conduct disrupting market activities. Market staff will then ask any persons violating these, prohibiting to relocate to a free speech area, which I actually still would like to know where that's at. I've been told 2 different things. 1, it's in the information alley, and 2, by a person on the council. They don't know.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We actually are going to talk about all of that when that is up on the agenda.
That's fine, and don't use up my time, please.
Okay.
Okay. If this is not successful by market staff, we'll contact the Bloomington Police Department, BPD. BPD will reiterate the request to move, and if this is not successful, the individual may be subject to arrest, which, like I said, I guess singing is disruptive, and trespass, I still don't understand that, because from my understanding, it's public property. No one in this room owns the market property. Second of all, since I got 24, 23, 22, 21 seconds, let's talk about how SCF stands have came up to me personally. One person told me that they thought I needed to be euthanized, like in Hitler days. Another person, transgender friend of mine, was told harassing and bashing. Nothing was done about that. What I don't understand is CFC is still there, and they're suing the city, but you still allow them. Makes no sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Nate. I live here, just like you do. Ms. Mills, I just want to thank you for your comment and let you know that I absolutely value Bloomington soccer, MC tennis, and Monroe County martial arts. Specifically in regards to reviewing and approving the partnership amendment with Buskirk Chumley Theater Management, I have a few remarks. But first, just a quick comment about the story about George Taliaferro. It's legendary, legendary man, legendary story. And as I heard it, He walked into the theater, I think, on a Tuesday afternoon when black Bloomingtonians were not allowed to see a film there, and he walked in with a screwdriver. And he removed the whites-only sign from the wall. He put it in his pocket, and he went and sat down. And he kept that as a trophy, and there's some really good photographs of it floating around. I mean, what an amazing story about Bloomington. So, yeah, sorry about that. Look, about the theater. I'm sorry, that was rude. So, look, Paula McDevitt, at the time director, on December 11th, 2018, the department then entered into a partnership with BCT Management Incorporated to manage the 2019 Buskirk-Chumley Theater season. In the original agreement, the duration of the agreement was from January 1st, 2019 through all the way until December. Okay, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Howdy, everyone. As we all know, the Buskirk-Chumley, the big theater with the Indiana sign, has been a fixture in this town since 1922. But is it LEEDs environmentally certified? Is it a park? Is it a green space, and should a contract be entered therein because of it? Now, we all like Hobie Carmichael and Quarry's and pork tenderloin sandwiches. And, you know, I'm here to tell you that since 1922, we've also liked theater. And, you know, one day a guy named Herman B. Wells came into this town and decided to give everyone a good kick in the behind and a bath and show you how to open foreign language departments and, you know, funnel great scholars into the CIA, build this town into the, what do they call it? What does the mayor call it? The blueberry in the tomato soup that it is. So I just like to say thank you all for the knock-up job you're doing. And any contract that you can manage with any of the fine people in this town is surely appreciated. And honestly, on a more serious note, we all care about local activities. I'm not from here. I have literally nothing to do with this place, but I've come to love it. And more than my mockery can sustain, every item you work on and you three work on, and everyone who is employed by this city works on, is affected by justice, and by racial justice in particular. So you think about it, and you think about the people who've had to sit in the back while you sit in the front, and I'll leave you your 10 seconds.
Thank you. So all those in favor of the agreement with Buskirk-Chumley Theater Management, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Next up, we have Jess Klein with the review of a partnership agreement with IU Health.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jess Klein. I'm the Health and Wellness Coordinator for the City of Bloomington Parks Department. I'm here today to talk about the approval of the partnership agreement with IU Health Bloomington. This partnership has been established for about 10 years now, and we both work together on the health and wellness of the community. We have a strategic action plan that follows 8 strategic parts, and those include sports medicine, marketing, employee wellness, and health and wellness resources. The respective teams we will continue to meet annually to reevaluate the partnership agreement, make changes as we see necessary, and then move forward from year to year. There are no major changes from last year.
Okay, yeah, this has been ongoing for some time in sports medicine, employee wellness, as you say. So, all right, do we have any questions? Are we ready for a motion?
Yeah, I move.
Okay, do we have any public comment or question about IU Health partnership agreement? And please, again, if I could remind you, if you have comments related to the market item, if you could please save those for the market portion of the agenda. Thank you.
Sure, of course. My name's Tom, and I'm a resident of Bloomington. I have been treated at IU Health, and I got really good care. I was very happy with the care that they gave me. I was saddened to hear that recently, and I guess maybe if there's someone from IU Health here, they could confirm this, but my friend said that he tried to go to the walk-in clinic, and they said that you have to make an appointment at the walk-in clinic, which seemed weird because it's a walk-in clinic, and supposedly you would, just walk in and not have to make an appointment. But I guess maybe they're swamped. I know a lot of people are sick these days, but I don't know. Maybe they should change the name. I know he was very sick. Anyway, one of the key people at IU Health, where you're making the contract, is Dennis Murphy. He's the president and the chief executive officer of IU Health, which is the largest healthcare system in Indiana. I'm sure you've driven. I've driven all over the state, and it's kind of amazing how often, while you're going down the highway, you'll see IU Health. So definitely they have the size to handle the volume here. He joined IU Health in 2013 as the chief operating officer. So he came in, basically that's one level lower, and he's guided IU Health as it builds a larger market role in value-based care, enhanced outpatient care, and that's really important because hospitals are keeping people in for shorter amounts of time now, so the outpatient care is really crucial to the quality of service. Also virtual visits, which saves people a lot of time, for things where you don't actually have to be in the room with the doctor. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi again. Also a resident of Bloomington. I wasn't going to talk about my experience with IU Health, but since you brought it up, I have never been told to get an appointment, although it's been many years since I tried to go into the walk-in clinic, but they did not accept my IU Health insurance when I did go there a few years ago. I always thought that was strange. I don't know if that's changed since then. But nevertheless, I think that they have expanded sort of beyond what they're capable of the service, providing good service to people. I think that's a consideration. However, the people who are involved in this contract seem to be good people for the most part who are trying to bring some services to this place. So one of them is Gary D. Henriot, a lifelong resident of Lafayette, Indiana. Henriot graduated from Purdue University's Krannert School of Industrial Management. He is currently the chairman of Henriot Group, an insurance risk management and employees benefits firm with clients throughout the Midwest, so very reputable. Henriot has been with the firm for over 40 years. And I don't know if the name is taken from him, but I'm assuming there's a connection there. He has been an active, also in addition to his work, an active community volunteer recognized by several groups for his leadership. Currently, he serves on the board of the IU Health West Central Region and chairs its Committee on Quality and Safety. Henriot is also president of the City of Lafayette's Board of Public Works and Safety. He chairs the Wabash Heartland Innovation Network and serves on the boards of the Community Foundation of Greater Lafayette, the Art Museum of Greater Lafayette Foundation, and LTHC Homeless Services, which he founded. Henriot also serves on the Purdue Athletic Affairs Committee and is active with the United Way of Greater Lafayette, chairing its community commitment to education. So I think we can be grateful for these people's involvement. Thank you.
I also was not going to share my experience with IU Health. I had to hit the emergency room and get a quick pain shot and an x-ray, and it cost $1,700. I feel like that's fairly exorbitant considering that I wasn't even there for a half an hour. And that's just one story. I've heard a lot of stories. One of my biggest issues with the healthcare system, and IU Health helps pervade this, is that insurance companies are designed to tell us no. And we've already seen evidence of that with just within the first 2 people that commented. So I think it's, and that's very indicative of the healthcare system in general. I have spoken to a lot of healthcare providers recently and people that are directly involved with people in care in the healthcare industry, and they have stated, all of them almost unanimously have stated that they would never turn anyone away for care, but that they have to turn people away because of insurance. I think IU Health represents that sector fairly well. The insurance sector, as it were. And this little aside is about Ann Nobles. Ann Nobles retired from Eli Lilly and Company after a 22-year career where she last served as Senior Vice President for Enterprise Risk Management and Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer. She has served on the boards of director of IU Health since 2011 and as board chair from 2014 to 2015. She also serves as Vice Chair of the Board of Directors of Citizens Energy Group. Where she has served as either a trustee or member of the board of directors since 2000. Nobles has been a member of the board of trustees of the Indiana chapter of the Nature Conservancy since 2013 and presently chairs that board. She is active in the work of her church, Second Presbyterian Church of Indianapolis. Nobles holds Bachelor of Arts and Masters of Arts degrees from Harvard University in anthropology with a focus on archaeology. She received her what is JD degree? A law degree from Georgetown University.
Thank you.
Hi, yeah, again, I'm Nate from Bloomington. I was born here, a cradle Bloomingtonian, you might say. I have some remarks, but briefly just would like to apologize to WTIU for moving your microphone earlier. I didn't see who it was from, and I think I was a little nervous. This is uncomfortable for me, as public speaking is not exactly, something I'm good at. Anyway, regarding the agenda item, Stephen G. Moore, MD, has served as president and CEO of Cardon and Associates since July of 2000. Moore, an Indiana native like myself, graduated from the Indiana University School of Medicine. Additionally, he trained at the Mayo Clinic in internal medicine and at Johns Hopkins University in Preventine medicine. I actually don't know what that is, and I'm not sure if I pronounced it correctly. Where he earned his Master of Public Health degree and spent 1 year as chief resident. Cardon and Associates has a 30-plus year history of developing and managing communities for seniors in the state of Indiana. The company currently owns, operates, or manages 21 communities for seniors throughout the state of Indiana. These communities offer skilled nursing and rehabilitation services, long-term care, memory care, assisted living, senior housing apartments, and garden homes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, golly, I'm a historian by trade, and memory care probably means something different to me than it means to IU Health. Ultimately, I've had the experience where my health insurance wasn't accepted, and I'm curious as to the nature of the contract between the Parks Department and IU Health. If one of the 3 percenters, or American Vanguard, or even an American Identity Movement member were per se to shoot someone in the market, would IU Health be the one charged with mopping up the blood? Is that the nature of the contract? Or is it just simply about providing services to the parks? I guess I could have read the packet. I think I might wrap up. I just want to say one thing. Mr. Hall here has been photographing people in this line as they lined up. And I want to give you the opportunity to take a picture of me so you can send it right to your friend Sarah Dye, Mr. Hall, or any of the other people whose hands that it might make it into who are a physical, violent threat to the market and to this town. Yes, go ahead and take a picture. Be proud of yourself. You, sir, are a gentleman.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cassie, and I wanted to, first of all, I wanted to talk about IU Health's mission statement, and then afterwards, if there's enough time, I would like to discuss my own experiences with IU Health. And this is read from the IU Health website's About Us section, and it's entitled Harnessing the Power of Philanthropy to Improve Hoosiers' Health. I have a friend who actually pronounces it Hoosiers, but that's a different story. Anyway, Indiana University Health Foundation, an entity of Indiana University Health, harnesses the positive impact of philanthropy to support our goal to make Indiana one of the healthiest states in the nation. Our approach is to improve the health of individuals, community, and our state by focusing philanthropy on people, progress, and partnerships. Foundations of IU Health refers to the foundations representing IU Health, which include local hospital-based foundations, our integrated partnership with the Rehabilitation Hospital of Indiana Foundation, and the flagship IU Health Foundation. Critique and analyze the mission statement. Well, so I think about their mission statement to make Indiana one of the healthiest states in the nation, and I remember a time when I was a victim of a violent crime, and I was transported by ambulance, which at the time was actually owned by Indiana Health. So when I got my bill, you know, I was billed for the time that I spent in the emergency room, for my ambulance ride. It actually kind of bankrupted me, and my time is up now.
Yes, thank you.
So I'll just leave you with that.
All right, thank you. So again, before we vote, I would just like to remind people, yes, it is helpful if you want to look at what is in the packet pertaining to the agreement. The agreement with IU Health is on very specific terms. It is not, to use an analogy, the city council recently voted on towing ordinances. It's not a place for every person who's ever owned a car to get up and explain their background of owning a car. It was very specifically about towing. So this is very specifically about sports medicine, employee wellness, health and wellness resources, et cetera. So all those in favor of this agreement, please say aye. 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 Motion carried. Thank you. And next up, we have the review of a contract with Monster Digital Marketing from Julie Ramey.
I'll take it. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Julie Ramey. I'm the Community Relations Manager with the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department, and I'm here to recommend approval of a service agreement with Monster Digital Marketing to develop a visually appealing and technologically superior website for the Twin Lakes Recreation Center. The Twin Lakes Recreation Center is, of course, our sports, fitness, and wellness facility located on West Bloomfield Road. It is operated much like any other gym or fitness center in town, with membership-based, as well as a host of sports leagues and tournaments, especially for youth. The presence of like the agreement says, a technologically superior website would allow people who are looking for those kinds of services to be able to easily find them in cyberspace when they're searching for a gym in Bloomington. And the company Monster Digital Marketing is a locally owned company with a great reputation among the websites that it has developed. The total amount of the contract is not to exceed $6,795, and that includes the research, search engine optimization, and the maintenance of the site with code updates, security updates, and the like for the rest of the calendar year.
Okay. Any questions about the agreement? Okay. All right. Nope. Motion for?
Yeah, motion.
Okay. Do you second the motion? Okay, any public or comment or questions specifically about the agreement with Monster Digital Marketing for the Twin Lakes Recreation Center?
Hi, I'm Tom. I'm a Bloomington resident. Do you have the? Sorry. Just want to make sure that the timer's going so I get the correct amount. I have some experience with digital marketing. At one time, I had a website that was about 300 pages, and I invested quite a bit of time and energy in learning about search engine optimization, which is essential to digital marketing because it's, most people use Google, or there are a few others like Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, and other popular search engines. And that's usually the most common way that people connect with a website. There is obviously the traditional marketing aspect of things like business cards or postcards or whatever, but most people are going through the search engine, so the digital marketing aspect is super important. But about Monster specifically, they specialize in creating search engine optimized websites, which I really appreciate. They can either build websites or optimize existing ones, so that way the city's covered, whichever one is needed. And I was really amused because this company, Monster is it's a website for finding a job, but so they had to distinguish themselves, and so the business advisor suggested that they not just go with Bloomington SEO because that's super boring. Who would ever want to just be named Bloomington SEO? Because also they do business all over the United States, so just limiting it to Bloomington wouldn't make any sense. And also SEO, I don't know if I'd define that, but search engine optimization, SEO. So he's looking around for a way to name it, and he saw his fluffy white Bichon Frise dog, whose name is Monster, and we have a photograph here of the dog.
All right, thank you.
Hello again. I love our parks, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about something I'm also very passionate about, which is high-quality web design. And what it can do. I think a lot of people, assume, what does a park need with a state-of-the-art website, right? But in fact, I don't, as someone who specializes in rhetoric, among other things, the importance of not only being able to get information to the public in a way that will actually be accessible to them, but also in a way that will help them appreciate and understand better the information they're getting. And so I think that this contract with Monster is an excellent idea. I hope that we will consider the importance of these sorts of things moving forward with all of our parks. And Monster, I would echo a lot of the things that Tom said. And I'd also add that it's not just about creating a great-looking website that, can interest people. It's much more complicated. It really is about multimodality and introducing people to information by helping them make the most of the intersection of word and image. And I think Monster, they have been for many years demonstrating their prowess in that area. Excuse me, I mispronounced that word. So just to quote from their own packets, it is important to present a well-designed site not only to current customers, but to prospects as well. We can provide you with a quality web design that is both easy to access and easy to navigate for your visitors. Every site we build and host is fast loading, maintained with up-to-date code, secured against hacking, and secured against malware, and I find that to be my experience as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Brandon again. I was reading the proposed contract with Monster Digital Marketing LLC, and Article 9 stood out to me. It says, Article 9, opinions of probable cost. All opinions of probable construction costs to be provided by contractors shall represent the best judgment of contractor based upon the information currently available and upon the contractor's background and experience with respect to projects of this nature. It is recognized, however, that neither contractor nor the department has control over the cost of labor, materials, or equipment, over contractor's method of determining costs for services, or over competitive bidding, market, or negotiating conditions. Accordingly, department cannot and does not warrant or represent that the proposals or construction bids received will not vary from the cost estimates provided pursuant to this agreement. This does not seem correct to me. I think the contractor does have control over these things. Does the contractor have control over labor costs? I think they do. Does a contractor have control over overly competitive bidding? I think they do. Does a contractor have control over negotiating conditions? I think they do. Does a contractor have control over their own method of determining costs for services? I think they do. Also, a contractor can and should have control over the costs of materials and equipment by seeking out various sources and comparing prices. Therefore, I believe this contract is not accurate in what it says. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished people, human beings of all types, it's my honor to get an opportunity to approach this microphone and speak into it at a volume that creates noise that you can hear with your ears, that's then transmitted to your brains in a language that you speak. Therefore, we are now communicating. It's most excellent. So thank you for this opportunity. I would like to thank my mother for giving me the opportunity to be here today. 31 years ago, I would like to thank my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Dudley, for inspiring me to color in and outside the lines in a way that brings me great satisfaction. And I would also like to thank my second grade teacher. Her name escapes me, but she was there. She filled me with promise. The promise it takes to stand up in front of an audience and say almost nothing, and fill 2 minutes doing it with pleasure. So thank you, Mom. Thank you, Miss Dudley, and my second grade teacher. You ladies are not forgotten today. And so that brings me to my point. Do we really want to celebrate monsters? Absurd.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. It makes this so much easier. My name is Joe Varga, and I'm a resident of Bloomington. I've lived here for 10 years now, and I've come to love Bloomington. I love Bloomington the way white people love mayonnaise. I love Bloomington the way crows like telephone wires. I've come to love it so much. And I've come to respect it so much. Our freedom of speech, it's restricted to certain areas. And so I feel compelled, alas, I am compelled to rise in opposition to this contract. For at a time when our society is filled with monsters, monsters of all types, monsters like mediocre white men who throw people out of meetings and give some people more time than others to speak, monsters like people who pretend to be objective political actors but defend white supremacy and then take pictures of people and probably will publish them, endangering their lives. because the people that they are in concert with are dangerous people, monsters, indeed, monsters in our midst. When we live among these monsters, is that the time to award a contract to a company called something, I don't know, Monster Digital Marketing? I say not. Monster Digital Marketing. Won't somebody, alas, think of our children? Won't somebody think of the puppies? My God. If we can't stop this, what can we stop in our bastion of free speech? You're moved to speak by this, aren't you? My God, this must stop. Thank you.
MDM is a maneuver that was performed upon me once, long ago. Or was it a Monster Energy drink, which has the sign of the devil in the logo? Claws, darkness, sadness, eternal night. These are the things that this evokes to mind. I don't know what need of digital marketing the Parks Board has in the first place. I don't know why you can't hire a whiz like one of the mayor's speechwriters or, you know, someone who can do IT. This guy right here has IT experience, and he's a jack of all trades. I could learn C++. Is that still the thing, or is it Python now? Python? I'm not much of a snake guy, monsters, you know. But I could learn these things and be moved to employ. If you'll pay me half of what you're paying Monster Digital Marketing, I'll do the work by myself after I finish my dissertation on the fate of Soviet writers who were repressed by Stalin now. That's some real repression. Those are some real monsters, you know, the people who were around in the mid-20th century. But we have these pretenders to monstrosity all around. And I just want to say, you call Charles and you're going to get some good internet services. And I'll make you an energy drink of my own concoction on the house.
Hello? Amidst everything else that folks are talking about, one issue that actually hasn't come up that I do actually think is a bit of a moral question that we need to consider when, you know, hiring a digital marketing firm is the use of metadata. I'm not sure if everyone's aware that many corporations, including Facebook and Google and lots of others that we haven't heard of, they are constantly monitoring us. Even people who don't have Facebook pages have files that are owned by Facebook that are keeping track of all of our digital behavior. And so the question that comes up is, is the public's use of city internet access, you know, to city information and parks information going to be tracked and surveilled in that way? And if so, will we have the opportunity as users to opt out of it? And also, regardless of the answers to those questions, then I would wonder, are there things that the city can do with that data that would be beneficial to the mission of the Parks Department and stuff like that? So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
All right. We have one more comment here, and then we're going to take a vote on this issue.
Thank you, perfect. Okay, so I've already used up 6 seconds. So we're talking about digital marketing, which we all know, or most do in here, that I have no clue about. But what I do have a clue about is when someone who is called all the way from Massachusetts, who is the president of AIM, Patrick Casey, a few people in here know him personally, with SCF invited him. So he came here to buy a tomato from Massachusetts. That's BS. while he was here, not only did he follow me around and a friend of mine, but I know you're a little aggravated. It takes me a minute to talk. But he also privately, over on Morton, not in the market, but a friend of Sarah Dye's, took our picture, blasted it with horrible, hateful words all over his Twitter, which is not just national, worldwide. He is a president of AIM. But yet you, who are, by the way, if you didn't notice, all white on the board here, allowed him to come to the market, be a stand-in for SCF. That's what I know about digital marketing, bashing. You know what I also know is 2 people in this room who are friends of Sarah Dye's and her husband, don't know his name, don't care, blasted my picture when I was standing in front of my son's grave all over Twitter. Horrible. That's what I know. You know what I also know is my picture of my car, my home, nothing was done about it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so all those in favor of the agreement with Monster Digital Marketing for Twin Lakes Recreation Center, please say aye. Aye. Motion carried. All right, so and we obviously have a strategy here to eat up as much time as possible. I've been a protester, sorry? Do you have such a strategy? It sounds like you do. So I'm going to respond to that for a minute. So I've been a protester before in various occasions of my life. And so I ask myself, when people are protesting in this fashion, what's the goal of it? And one goal could be to eat up enough time so that we never get to the review of the farmers market rules of behavior. I suppose that could be a goal. Eventually, we could have to leave the room. We could have to schedule another meeting. That would happen. I guess another possible goal could just be to be annoying. I'm a high school teacher. I can do annoying all day long. So I understand that as a goal. But I am also about efficiency, and I don't really see the purpose of going through on every single one of these contracts and having a unrelated conversation before we have each one of the votes. We certainly welcome any comments about the farmers market rules of behavior related issues. That is on the agenda. We are not saying that people cannot comment on that. Just for efficiency's sake, it seems like it would be better to proceed with the rest of the items on the agenda more quickly, and I've been advised by City Legal that we can do that with skipping the public comment period on the, you will still have plenty of time to comment. You'll still have plenty of time to comment when that item is on the agenda. So, you will still have plenty of time. If your goal is to comment, you will still have plenty of time to do that. Yes. So we are going to move on with the next item. If you have comments that are actually tangential to the item, again, I point out the analogy of city towing. I didn't get up at the city council meeting and describe every car I've ever owned and how many oil changes I had and read random things off the owner's manual. So, no, I'm not deciding.
You are arbitrarily deciding what is relevant.
Okay, all right. So, all right. All right, so we are going to take a break. We are going to briefly adjourn the meeting and take a 10-minute break, please. Called for a break, and we're going to reconvene. And we've decided, since clearly people have a lot of things to say about some items later on the agenda, it might make more sense to bump those up. Right, we're going to deal with all the items on the agenda, but out of courtesy to people here who might want to speak on items later in the agenda, we're going to go ahead and move those up. So, okay, sir, we've set, sir, we've, What's going on is that people want to speak to an agenda item, and we're accommodating you by moving it up in the agenda. So that is what we're going to do now. Okay, sir, I'd ask you, please, we're trying. It's not illegal. We have consulted with city legal. Sir, please. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to item C15, in which Paula McDevitt will discuss an update to the Administrative Policy 2050, which is related to, somewhat related to the farmers market and other parks. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you. Moving to this agenda item, staff is recommending the approval of updates to the Administrative Policy 2050 entitled Removal and Suspension from Use of Property Owned, Managed, or Operated by the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department. Just a little bit of background on our Administrative Policy Manual. This is a compilation of policies by which the Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department and the board operate. To maintain its usefulness, this policy manual must be updated and revised at regular intervals or as necessary, concurrent with board approval. The policy manual is also referred to throughout our CAPRA accreditation process. It is the backbone of our operation and is used through our re-accreditation. I would like to now go through this policy, and I will cite the recommended update. Policy 2050, Section 1, Removal. The proposed update is in Section 1C. However, I would like to review Section 1A and 1B. Section 1A, Removal. In accordance with the authority established in Indiana Code 3610-4 and Bloomington Municipal Code 2.20, a person may be asked to leave or be removed from property owned, managed, or operated by the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department for reasons that include, but are not limited to, actions or behaviors which violate the United States Code, the Indiana Code, the Indiana Administrative Code, and the City of Bloomington Municipal Code. Actions or behaviors which violate the rules and regulations adopted by the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department or City of Bloomington Parks Board unless the appropriate permit has been obtained. Aggressive or violent actions or behavior. Actions or behavior that unreasonably disrupts the activities of other users of the park or facility. Actions or behaviors that unreasonably interferes with other person's ability to use the park or facility. Actions or behaviors which unreasonably cause or creates a risk of causing injuries to persons within or on the property owned, managed, or operated by the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department. Actions or behaviors which unreasonably cause or creates a risk of causing damage to property owned, managed, or operated by the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department, or actions or behaviors which constitute a public notion. This policy is used throughout our department at our facilities, properties owned, and parks. Section B of this policy, the following individuals have the authority to ask a person to leave or ask a person to be removed from a property owned, managed, or operated by the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department. Employees of the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department or law enforcement officials.
Sir, please, there'll be public comment period in a moment, right, okay?
Or are you going to change that rule too?
I think
you're now becoming
disruptive. You've become. We're asking you to please wait till the public comment period, all right? Please let Ms. McDevitt finish, please. Would you? You will have a time to comment on the. I changed the rules to accommodate people who might like to comment on this. Yeah. Sorry? Yes, for this year, yes. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm please asking you, you will have time to comment.
Is that legal?
Because you just gave
After
people the ability to have someone arrested. You realize that, right?
You can make a comment to that effect as soon as she finishes reading it. I ask you, please, sir, please wait until the public comment period.
Vote yes on this amendment. Who is this person?
We will shut up.
address one of those comments?
Okay, because, please, sir, we are going to have to ask people to leave.
What's the rule that you're following here?
The rule that we're following is that someone raised an issue, and she is from City Legal Department who would like to answer. She is from the City Legal Department. She would like to answer the question that was raised.
What are the rules?
If you would be quiet for a minute, you could hear her name.
What's happening now?
Oh, great, now there's power, more power. You want to follow rules? Follow rules.
I'm sure they have legal advice.
I hope that everyone is recording this.
They are.
See what you have done, because someone talked.
Okay. Yes,
This is a
Paula,
free
could you,
speech zone.
sir, you will have a chance. You've had more than ample chance to speak, and you will have another chance to speak. But we're going to ask you for the last time to please be quiet during this portion, and then you can comment. Well, or we're going to ask you to leave the meeting. There is a place to make a comment. No one is silencing you. We're just asking you to wait until the comment period. That's all. Okay? So, Paula, could you please finish with the... Yes, please. Thank you.
Section 1C of the policy, any person who is asked to leave or is removed from property owned, managed, or operated by the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department shall be advised of the reason he or she is being asked to leave or is removed. The update to this policy would read, any person who is asked to leave by law enforcement officer as defined by Indiana Code and refuses to do so may be subject to arrest. Section 2 of Policy 2050, suspension. Policy 2050, Section 2, suspension. In accordance with the authority established in Indiana Code 3610-4 and Bloomington Municipal Code 2.20, a person may be suspended from use or entrance on property owned, managed, or operated by the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department for reasons that include outlined in the Administrative Policies 2050, and as I just previously read through that list in Section 1A. The policy update that is recommended in Section 2, suspension, is in Section B and C, and it is the addition of the word her. In the determination that a person is to be suspended from use or entrance on property owned, managed, or operated by the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department is limited to the Director of Parks and Recreation and/or his, her appointed designee. Section C, once the decision to suspend has been determined, a person will be notified of the suspension in writing via certified mail or personal service. The notification will be signed and dated by the Director of the Parks and Recreation Department and/or his, her appointed designee. Any person who receives a notification of suspension shall have the right to appeal said suspension following the appeal process outlined in Administrative Policies 2050 and be entitled to a suspension hearing before the Board of Park Commissioners. A maximum length of suspension, no suspension shall be issued that is shorter than 7 calendar days or lasts longer than 1 calendar year. Upon entry upon or into any property owned, managed, or operated by the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department by a person who is suspended in accordance with this policy shall subject the person to arrest for criminal trespass in accordance with Indiana Code 354322. If the request updates are approved, the date will be changed at the top of the policy and will be entered into the policy in accordance with updating policy document procedures for accreditation. And again, as I stated at the beginning of my report, this is a policy that has been in place for decades and used throughout the department. It's been used at facilities. From time to time, we have activities that we run that do sometimes get a little out of hand, and we've referred to this policy. We've used this policy as well in some of our parks over the past 2 years, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have about this policy update.
All right, thank you. And just to sort of piggyback onto what Paula just said, I've only been on the Parks Board for 3 years, but in that time, unfortunately, there have been a few instances where someone has been suspended from a park for some period of time. The one most recent that I remember is someone who threatened a Parks employee to the point where she had to call 911, I believe, and he was suspended from the park for some period of time, I think 30 days or. So this is a continuation of that same rule that we have had. So do you have any other comments or questions about this? All right, so do we have we will get to some public comment in a second. Do we have a motion to approve an update to Administrative Policy 2050?
Move.
Okay. Second. All right, any public comment or question about this? Yes.
Bloomington. I want to reiterate something that was said earlier, and that is that all of the work that you do as city employees is impacted by racial justice. And so I want to make a comment about this particular policy as it relates to racial justice. The mayor acknowledged in his State of the City talk that Bloomington has a legacy of racial injustice. And this is not debatable. We all know this is true. This is in our history. The mayor also expressed some support for democratic protest generally, although he then restricted it kind of to climate action protest. And so I want to make mention that democratic protest is important beyond climate action. The important thing I want you as city officials to think on when we're approving policies that are restrictive in nature is that Bloomington is, by default, a white safe city and not by default a city safe for people of color. We are over 80% white with a tremendous and profound legacy of racial injustice. Every policy that you write and that you adopt that is about legal restriction of individuals is colored by our legacy of racial injustice. And I need my 30 seconds. I would like to see in the policy it stated directly that we recognize our history of racial injustice and that this is a risk in our restrictions, and that this is called out in the policy, that this is something that we're paying attention to and we have a strategy to avoid. I think this applies to this particular administrative policy just because it's always been around and it's always worked for us, the largely white people in this room, does not mean that it's effective or just. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think whatever happens here with your vote today, although I think we know how you're going to vote, the lid or the facade of your investment in the First Amendment has been utterly decimated by your choices here. So keep that in mind. As a tactic, banning protest to stop protest is utterly futile. The right to free assembly is given by the First Amendment. The government does not have a right to use time, place, and manner restrictions to stop a legitimate boycott. You are making the situation worse with your proposed rules, which will be received by the majority of the public as the threat to free speech that it is. The FMAC vendor representative, by the way, to give some context from where these choices are coming from, the FMAC vendor representative is an avowed SCF supporter. The public has a right to know this because this person is supposed to be representing all vendors' interests, and instead they are representing the interests of a minority who supports and enables white supremacy. All across the country, white supremacists are planning to overthrow the government and kill activists, LEOs, government officials, and of course, groups, marginalized groups that they see as their enemy. This is not an exaggeration. This is not a situation that can be taken lightly, and I don't understand why you won't approach this issue in that context, given the overwhelming evidence of that threat and where the FBI stands on it and where other state governments, including New Jersey, which has recently declared domestic terrorism to be a higher threat than ISIS. I don't know why so many smart people are rushing to fill historically predetermined roles of foolish abettors to white supremacy why it is not obvious to you that you will be scorned by people living 100 years from now.
All right. Thank you very much for your comments.
The best in your journey to absolute mediocrity and historical oblivion.
Okay, good evening to the members of the Parks and Rec Board and to all those who are here contributing their time to speak regarding this important community issue. My name is Rob Stewart Ingersoll. I grew up in Bloomington. I went to IU for undergrad and then moved with my wife, who I met working for Parks and Rec, away for a number of years. I studied political science and became a professor of international relations, and I worked at a number of institutions, both traditional as well as military. The last institution, military, I worked at was the National Defense College at the UAE, and one of the things that we were primarily worried about, concerned about, thinking strategically about, and Les, I really wish you would listen. Your body language speaks volumes. And I've known you, and I've known your children from when I was a kid, and this is shocking, your behavior. So one of the things that we spent a lot of time at the National Defense College talking about was violent extremism and how to counter that. And we talked a lot about the process of recruiting vulnerable people from society, a lot about the marketing strategies of ISIS and other groups who portray themselves as good, as reasonable, as part of society, as protecting tradition. Now that the people that I worked with the U.S. Defense Department or the people that I worked with in the Emirati strategic community disputed that the recruitment process, the radicalization process, the integration into all segments of community, like our farmers market, our gem of a farmers market, was part and parcel of what eventually became the violent attacks that they perpetrated.
All right, thank you, sir.
Think about that.
Thank you.
I've heard a lot about laws and rules and civility, and this process that you saw tonight was designed to make you make a choice. Would you follow rules? Do you respect rules? Would you be civil? Would you follow the law? And you've made the wrong choice. I mean, ironically, you've given us another thing to sue you for. By not following your own rules, you have made a content-based choice to reorganize the agenda in violation of the Open Meetings Act. And why? Because you don't respect rules. You want us to respect rules, but when it comes down to the responsibility that you as government officials have, the power you hold, what do? Rules go out the window. You don't care. You expect us to care. You think we should follow rules and let's be civil, but the moment it comes to you, where you have to come up with some minor accommodation, what do? Hypocrites. Weak hypocrites who don't have the strength of your own convictions to follow rules. That's why people don't respect government, because you don't respect government enough to follow the rules, to give us the respect, the free speech opportunities that we are entitled to by law. We have Marcia Veldman, a management-level employee of the city, admitting on tape that the rules were changed to affect us. That is the most direct violation of the United States Constitution you can possibly find. And now, you've lined up armed cops to arrest me again with no cause, and you know it.
Thank you.
Okay. So I just want to make some stuff clear that I don't think Paula quite made clear in her explanation of C-15, which is that there aren't really very many changes to C-15. You still have suspension powers, but like there's two changes. of note. The first is that there's a change in gendering to his/her. You might want to put non-binary pronouns there too, they, them, theirs. And also, the other thing is that the real sentence that's changed is any person who is asked to leave by a law enforcement officer as defined by Indiana Code and refuses may be subject to arrest. That's the new thing. It should have been there half a year ago when they started arresting people at the BCFM. My question is, if we can't trust city officials to abide by their own rules because they didn't before, why should we trust them now? Why should we reward them with more power? Especially because good thing you gave me an extra minute because I can get to some of the statistics that of BPD, the use of force rates from 2018. 77.7% on African Americans, 90.5% use of force stats on all black women out of all women arrested. You can find this on the Bloomington website. 2019, that dipped down for some reason to 24.5%, and then 18% on black women. You can go to the BP, and keep in mind this is the population is 4.2%, according to the 2018 census numbers of black people. So it's vastly overrepresented. Why should we trust BPD?
Thank you.
Hello. I just wanted to talk for a minute about these changes and whether or not they require codification by the City Council to be actually effective or meaningful, or if this is just really some kind of theater to intimidate us into not protesting at the market, not continuing to take a stand against white supremacy. Because I look at this board and I see Les, and I don't know if he's been playing Minecraft or Pokemon or what he's been doing.
Okay.
But he hasn't really been listening, as was apparent when he was called out earlier. And I see you, and you're so concerned with just maintaining tight control over the order, even if it means that people lose their voices. And I wasn't aware when I came into this room tonight that this was a restricted speech area. I thought that we would be allowed to talk at the end of each agenda item, that we would follow the agenda that was laid out before us. I actually thought that there were rules in place that kind of prevented you from going completely off agenda and just talking about the items that you wanted to talk about when you wanted to talk about them, regardless of whether anybody else could participate in that conversation. Now, to go back to my original point about codification by City Council, it's my understanding that in order to create rules in which people can be arrested for free speech, there has to be some sort of codification in the city rules or legal.
Yes, so I just wanted to thank you for bringing that up, and perhaps we could get city legal to respond to that, whether we are solely responsible for voting on these rules, or whether the city council also has to come along and approve them or disapprove them, or...
The Parks Board is a statutory board, and there is statute governing your powers, and you have the power to set policy related to any property under the control of the Parks Department.
Okay, all right, thank you. Good question. Good question. All right, yes, next.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank the board and especially Paula. She is one of the few people that over the past couple of years that listened to me. And at the same time, I appreciate you listening to us when we come to you with what we feel are reasonable alternatives. I went to People's Park for my birthday when I was 60 years old, and I was called everything but you can't say in public, and that made me mad. So I went to Paula, and I asked her what does her uncle David do? And she says, just keep by, be nice, and state your case. So with that, I said, what we need to do is to be able to allow people who might necessarily agree with you have that opportunity. At the same time, I had two uncles that served in World War II and fought the Nazis. Okay? I had two cousins that served in Vietnam. Okay? My son is a serviceman in the Air Force. All we ask is a code of conduct. Be nice, be respectful, be accountable, and for now, did you serve? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Trent Feuerbach. I'm a candidate for Senate District 40. I'm a resident of Bloomington. I'm really frustrated about this market situation. I have been for a long time. What I see here is a calamity of errors by this city government. Les, my mom graduated with your brother from the old Bloomington High School. I thought people here respected the rights of minorities. But that's not what I've seen the last 7 months. Kara Cadu wasn't violent. She was holding a damn sign. Why are you all escalating this? It's time for de-escalation. Don't add. You know, I lived in the South for 17 years after I graduated from Purdue. The Deep South, Houston, Texas. 17 years I lived under the remnants of Jim Crow and black laws. Why is it coming to Bloomington? What are you doing with these rules and regulations? We know who they're for. I'm scared of you all. And it shouldn't be like that.
Thank you.
I think Professor Ingersoll and everyone who's spoken today brought up some excellent points about creep and the creep toward violent ideologies. I am a specialist in Soviet history. I am a convinced Rooseveltian Democrat, if you will. I want this country to succeed and thrive, and it thrives on nothing but freedom of speech. That being said, when there is such a grave threat to people's lives, to their voices, to their speech, that speech itself stifles life and cuts tongues out, something must be done. And the thing that could have been done, the steps that could have been taken bravely like this by this city, but weren't taken because you were afraid of lawsuits and were sued anyway. And by the way, as much as I agree with the mayor that Dye's suit is meritless, you'd better get outside counsel because city legal has messed this up. And now you are facing other suits. And I am not a litigious person. But I wanted to say something about what the professor said. I recently was reading an article by a friend about the spread of mujahideen from Afghanistan to ISIS over a 30-year span after the Soviet invasion. And the seeds of radicalism born in one place, born out in magazine articles and newspapers, by people who were not radical terrorists at the time, but had certain ideas about how their integrity should be preserved, birthed a genocidal regime. You have to use your conscience.
Thank you.
I'd like to take the first 10 seconds of my time and have a 10-second moment of silence for each of the victims of the identitarian attacker in Germany last week. Thank you. As you've already heard, and I hope that you guys are realizing, you're definitely just crashing the bus on this one. I can't believe that with all that's going on and all the talk of free speech that you're actually going to change one sentence in a legal document so that it can be brought up so that you can remind us that we are under threat of being banned from. Is it just the city market, or is it all Parks properties? We can be banned from all Parks properties for holding a sign in the farmer's market? Is that what I'm hearing here?
No, it would be pursuant to the particular
just the-
park where
just
the
the farmer's
disruption
market.
occurred. So if the disruption occurred in 3rd Street Park, it could potentially be a suspension from 3rd Street Park.
But not all parks?
No, not all parks.
Okay, well, that's nice at least. So I also am just still completely stunned by the irony that the last time I was in this room, Charlotte Zitlow, whose name is on the Justice Building that killed 4 people last year and tortured my friend, got 5 minutes to speak while everyone else was given 2. And now we come and we use the time that has been legally allotted to us, as is completely in line with the rules, and you changed the rules so that people are less able to speak. The idea that city government believes in the First Amendment is an absolutely ridiculous concept that I no longer believe in.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion on Administrative Policy 2050? Kind of lost track. Yes, move? Or,
move.
Okay.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. And the next up is a related item. Again, we have adjusted some of the items because it seemed like 3/4 of the room was interested in those items, and to allow for more people to be able to participate in them, we have moved to the bottom of the agenda. So C16 is the review of the Bloomington Community Farmers Market Rules of Behavior from Marcia Veldman.
Good evening. Marcia Veldman, the Farmers Market Coordinator. I'm here to recommend the approval of the rules of behavior as outlined in the January 9th, 2020 meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. The mission of the Bloomington Community Farmers Market is to strengthen our local agriculture and food community by serving as a venue to nurture the direct, positive relationships between farmers, food and beverage artisans, and customers, to promote a safe and welcoming environment for all while enhancing and reflecting the City of Bloomington's diversity and encouraging multicultural awareness, to promote and improve food justice by implementing programs to increase access to market product by low-income populations, and to improve local food security and community sustainability by fostering a resilient food supply. As the mission statement indicates, the market operates on a variety of levels. It is primarily a market, a place where local growers, farmers, food artisans, artists can connect with customers and sell their goods. This simple yet profound activity improves local food security, strengthens the local economy, and enhances community sustainability, which is critical as we face a changing environment. Another fundamental level at which the market operates is as a community gathering place. For decades, people have come together on Saturday mornings to meet friends and neighbors, listen to music, participate in events celebrating food, culture, and community. With a focus on the aspect of the mission of enhancing and reflecting the City of Bloomington's diversity and improving multicultural awareness, the Farmers Market Advisory Council has established the Broadening Inclusion Subcommittee with the goal of evaluating existing market practices and programs and taking a forward-looking approach by providing suggestions to make the market even more inclusive. The market is also a place where people come together to engage with issues, politics, and movements. As is stated in the Market Information Tabling Policy, the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department is committed to providing an environment where issues can be openly discussed and explored. To that end, there are 2 designated free speech areas within the market boundaries, Info Alley and Plaza 1A, as well as public areas beyond the boundaries of the market. The rules of behavior are designed to allow the market to fulfill its primary purpose of being a place where farmers, artisans, and customers can come together, while also creating a vibrant community space and allowing for robust community engagement, and not just because it's protected by the Constitution, but because it is a strong civic value. The rules of behavior for the 2020 market season have been reviewed and approved by the legal department and Parks and Recreation staff and reviewed by the Farmers Market Advisory Council. There are several changes made to them relative to the ones in place last year, including refining the boundaries of the market to reflect the functional boundaries, and further defining types of activities in the market and where they may take place. Some existing rules that were regularly enforced but not included previously on the written document were added, including information on pets and smoking in the market. One update made to the rules of behavior since those that were included in the January 9th, 2020 Park Board packet is the addition of a reference to the applicability of the Department Administrative Policy 2050 regarding removal and suspension from property owned, managed, or operated by the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department. I will try and answer any questions you have. Otherwise, other staff can support me on that.
Okay, do we have any questions? Any questions? Okay. Yeah, I guess I would just like to comment that I think I total up, there are 7 areas of protest, at least in my reading of this, 7 spaces around the market where a person could go and protest if they wanted to. And also just pointing out, you mentioned Information Alley, goes back to, I believe, at least the early 1990s that space has been there for people who want to protest. I also recognize, again, that the point of protest is often to cause a disruption. The point of protest is to be right there, inches away from what it is that you're trying to affect. I totally get that. But I think if we have a free-for-all of protests, that we probably don't have a market anymore. And we have voted to continue a market, and that's what we're charged with doing. If we're having a market, we're having a market. I'm not sure the public wants to run a gauntlet through various sides of protesters to buy cucumbers and bread. But I understand that the point. I understand the frustrations, and I understand the point of protest is to. So with that, we will move to any other public comment. I understand that. Any other public comment about this issue? Yes.
Hello, I'm Judy Klein, and I urge the Park Board to adopt these proposed rules of behavior for the farmers market. Our first priority as a city is to decry white supremacy and work to dismantle it. It is not surprising that the ugly legacy of white supremacy is still with us, and adherents can be found at the farmers market, both among vendors and customers. We are reminded daily of how messy democracy is. Messy enough that both Schooner Creek Farm and Professor Kadu can claim their First Amendment rights have been denied in their respective lawsuits. I believe the proposed rules of behavior strike a compromise that respects the First Amendment rights of all, while allowing commerce to proceed in a setting where customers can choose the vendors they wish to buy from, and farmers and prepared food artisans can make a living. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna Lynch, longtime Bloomington resident. I understand that the city wants to complete a lot of business this evening, and I want to reiterate again, every bit of business that you complete is impacted by racial justice. And I have the question for you. Sorry, I have so many questions. I opened the wrong one. I understand that the rules as laid out in this draft are designed to limit the chances that protests will disrupt the market. That's clear, you've said that. The city wants to make the market a safe place for community building, a place where Bloomingtonians and visitors alike can share conversation, get to know each other, and make new connections. Of course, this kind of environment is also perfect for recruiting white supremacists and expanding that network in full view of a community that is loath to acknowledge or name the sin of racism. So to reiterate, the city is working to protect an environment of relationship and network building by restricting options for protest, which, not to state the obvious, but that's not going to restrict protest. My question to the board is what elements in this draft are designed to restrict or limit white supremacists from relationship building and network, i.e. recruiting, in the market in 2020? Thank you.
Thank you.
No one going to answer that question?
I don't think there's there's nothing that we have the power to do as a board to restrict people from recruiting. I don't know.
On protesters, but not on recruiters for white supremacy.
No, that is not in our power to do, to restrict people from having conversations about the market or any other conversation about the market. So we'd like to move on to the next commenter, please.
In the marketplace.
Thomas, if you'd like to move on, please.
You know this is how you make it all worse, right? What you're doing right now. The reason for having free speech is so that things don't get worse. You give people an outlet. You give people an opportunity to speak and have difficult conversations. That's why you have free speech. If you bottle that up, it goes somewhere else. I don't know where yet. You know, we'll be there in one form or another doing our thing. We'll be nonviolent. Now, there was somebody who attacked me physically in the market last year to try to provoke me into a fight. I didn't take him up on it. I called the police. They told me that you can hit someone in the city of Bloomington, and if you don't end up in the hospital or a cop doesn't see it, that they won't file charges. I knew the man, Tim Morrow, a white supremacist supporter like Mr. Hall here. I was able to identify him. He struck 2 other people in the market that day, but the police said if they didn't see it, they won't do anything about it. You act like there are rules, but the moment you have to do something to respect those rules, you don't do it. You created a set of rules that showed up. I was frantically running through the market trying to find out the written rules, asking everyone I could for the rules. No one would give me the rules while Caracadu was carrying her sign. Hours later, you published some bullshit document backdated a month. And then we have her on tape saying that the rules were changed to oppress us. Then you give Charlotte Zietlow 2.5 times the amount of time to speak against us. You think rules deserve respect? You deserve respect? Right. You respect
Thank
them.
you. Thank you, sir.
So I'm quite disturbed by the whole affair. The thing is, this set of rules intentionally to respond to our speech, these content-based restrictions masquerading as time and place restrictions cannot stand, and they will be challenged. There's a fear, of course, of danger that is rightful among the public, among the vendors, among the protesters, among everyone who comes around that market. I want to make it clear that that threat comes from white supremacists. We are not going to be victim blamed. We are not going to be scapegoated. Now, Marcia Veldman, who spoke in defense of these rules and gave a flowery speech about diversity and inclusivity, wears purple today. She often wore purple to the market. Was that a sign of solidarity? I'm tempted to ask her, but I shouldn't focus on anyone. I wondered, was this a sign of solidarity? A milquetoast, lukewarm solidarity? Well, I don't like racism. I don't like racism and racists. And I'm willing to wear a jacket or a color. But I'm not willing to respect your free speech. I'm not willing to understand the true threat of white supremacy to this country, to that flag, to this town, to our bodies, to the bodies of people who are much more vulnerable than we are. So I would say, don't wear purple if you're not going to stand up for it. And don't be a hack.
Thank you.
Yep, so I want to talk to you about equivocation, and I will make a point in relation to, actually, I wanted that map up there, but that's all right. Equivocation is a word, and it means when you use language to disguise your intent, it's actually not just a word, it's a kind of lying. And it's a sort of lying that people do when they are aware that they're lying and they're aware of what they're covering up. So for instance, when you create a zone to take up more space in the market where you know protesters were last summer and you call it a free speech zone when it's designed to silence them, that's equivocation. When you wear purple in defiance of a protest because you want to normalize it and pretend like it doesn't mean what it means, that's equivocation. When you call anything free speech that's meant to silence it, it's equivocation. And when you say that you believe in diversity, but your policies support white supremacy, that's equivocation. And the reason I know a lot about equivocation is because I study Shakespeare, and equivocation is the great crime at the heart of Macbeth, which is his play about human evil. And for Shakespeare, I think it's fair to say that equivocation is the worst kind of evil, maybe even worse than original sin, but I don't want to go that far. Nevertheless, the reason it's so evil is because it's the sort of evil that regular people do. It's the sort of evil that leads a guy like Macbeth, who's basically a good guy, to do something horrible because he lets his relationship to language dictate his relationship to morality. And I think that we can do a little better. I don't know actually that we can do better because it's been going on for thousands of years this way. I don't expect you people to rise up and overcome it, but you should at least be aware of it, that what you're doing is equivocation and it is wrong, and we will be here to stand up for truth. Thank you.
Hello. Are we considering item C16?
Yes.
Oh,
I believe
okay,
we
just
are.
making sure because
Yes. Yeah.
based on listening to what Martha had to say, I had no idea. You know, I have the in front of my laptop the the new draft of the rules of behavior, and I'll just tell people what it actually does. It clarifies what protesters can't do, basically. And one thing that it clarifies, which is interesting, is it talks about some, what vendors can do. Because, I mean, we have this whole issue in the first place because of vendors' free speech. And I find it interesting that vendors can't carry signs, except as laid out in it says the contract, but really it should say the handbook. But I mean, you guys are going to approve it anyway, so why should I note the error? But what in the handbook it says, and this is a new sentence that was approved of back in the January 9th meeting, was vendors may only display signs, information, and/or items at their stands that consist of the products they are selling or that directly relate to their business. So that's a content-based restriction right there. And I know Mayor Hamilton is gonna say, oh, but it's not a political speech. It's not gonna restrict political speech, but or whatever he has to say about political speech. But like, you might want to look up Reed versus Town of Gilbert, which they tried to say it was a content-neutral restriction for something that was tried to restrict protesters, and that didn't go so well. So I just check it out.
Thank you.
The lawyer. So one thing that I want to touch on is goalposts and how it seems like the goalposts are continually being shifted. Shifted for us as protesters, certainly, but also they've been shifted for Schooner Creek Farm as well. I know that nobody's wanting to say the name Schooner Creek Farm or Sarah Dye, but that the goalposts for Schooner Creek Farm have been shifted. At first, when we started this protest, gosh, what was it, 9 long months ago, almost 10 months ago, we were told that recruiting for white supremacist terror groups in the market was forbidden. Well, fast forward a few months, and we find out that Sarah actually has been effectively recruiting for her white supremacist terror group, American Identity Movement, in the market. So much so that Patrick Casey, who is the president of the American Identity Movement, which is a white nationalist terror group, came to Bloomington several weekends, and he filmed recruitment videos here. There are pictures of him that have been used on the terrorist website, American Identity Movement, featuring Sarah, featuring Doug, featuring their children. And that's been a very effective recruiting tool, it seems like. I know that they have recruited at least one person in this room, and I know that there are people in Bedford that they've recruited, and those people actually came to our market from different cities, armed with guns and knives, and they, in some cases, assaulted protesters, but they always threatened them. And I want to talk about that goalpost and why that goalpost was moved back.
Thank you.
Start my minutes yet. Please go back 4 seconds. Go back. I was not at the mic.
She's getting it.
Yeah. Why would you do that? Ridiculous. Okay, now that I'm talking, so Marcia had said, and we've all read and heard over and over and over, repetitively, kind of like the 51st states, Jesus, safe and welcoming city, safe and civil city. You know what? That's a joke. And many agree with me. The market is not, no, this is on or not. The market is not safe as long as white supremacists and their supporters, handful in this room, are threatening citizens. One citizen is myself. Another is a very close friend of mine who is in the LGBT community. Another sitting right beside me who was assaulted. Another is my immediate next door neighbor. Do you know why she doesn't come to these meetings? Wonder why? Because she's scared that she will see a supporter of Sarah Dye and Schooner Creek Farm, basically same thing, so I don't know why I said it like that. Because why? She was grabbed by who? Not just a supporter. I'll say his name, Tim Morrow, M-O-R-R-O-W. Also, Robert Brummett, write it down. He is a white supremacist supporter, very good friend also of Sarah Dye. He was upstairs in room 225, harassed me with video, making fun of the way I speak, in a room full of people. Nobody said anything. Do you know why? Why? Because no one on your board, I'm sorry, I like a few people personally on your board. I do. Not you three, because I don't know you. But you know what? Because you don't give a shit about marginalized people. You don't. No, you don't. Now, I have a question.
Thank you.
Yes. I'm going to use my Charlotte 50 seconds. When are we going to talk about the switch yard? When are we going to talk about that? Have we skipped it?
Switch yard, which element of switch yard?
Do what?
Which element of Switch Yard Park?
Well, there's about 50, but I'm going to just mention
no,
two.
the one of the alcohol permit for community events?
I could care less about alcohol.
Okay, well, that's the only other switch yard related thing on our agenda tonight.
Let's talk about the alcohol. Is that what we're talking about?
Sorry, that is another item on the agenda tonight, is an alcohol permit for events in Switch Yard Park.
Okay, are we on that right now?
No,
But
right now.
we're going to bring that up eventually, right?
If we have time before we have to vacate the room and we can get to the rest of the items, we
we don't know if
will.
we're going to have that time. I met with Dave Williams this week, or last week, since it's Tuesday, Friday, and he mentioned that it's in the process of Switchyard Park, brand new building, wonderful Bloomington building, that's not accessible for the elderly, wheelchair users, children, anyone on walkers. I asked when that's going to happen. He said it's in the process. But here's my thing. What I told him was, if a good architect or project manager had common sense, he would have worked that in the beginning with the walls being up, not the friggin' last thing. You know why it's the last thing? Because you don't give a shit about marginalized people. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up as well.
Look, Kathleen, earlier you were characterizing the point of protesting. It is a strategy. The point is justice, Kathleen. We're asking for justice. I do not believe that you are personally racists. I don't believe you are racists. Defined here as an individual person who harbors feelings of racial hatred in their hearts, okay? I don't believe that describes you. That definition of racism is very problematic. So just for the purposes of my remarks here, the policy that you're about to enact is a racist policy. Yep. The black leaders and other non-white leaders of Bloomington have already called for a public boycott of the city market. Where are they today? They're not here. They have already written you off. They have no sense of trust in you. This is heartbreaking, okay? I'm heartbroken by that. I'm ashamed. Are you not ashamed of that? Where are the black leaders of Bloomington? And why are they not welcome here? Why do they feel unwelcome here? It's the same reason that they don't feel welcome at the market. In Dr. Cadu's tort claim, she's claiming false arrest because the rules were made by an ad hoc committee in an informal session. This is changing that. What you're doing now will guarantee that it will guarantee police violence, okay? What you're doing now is very harmful. And the outcome of what you're doing is a racist outcome. You are creating, I all but guarantee that you are creating an all-white market, and you should not be doing that.
Thank you for your comments. Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry, could you pause just 1 second? He wanted
A
to.
question. So you mentioned police violence. In which way? Why?
You're threatening protesters with police violence. We've already had an arrest.
We've had six arrests. Well, 6 arrests.
We had one person taken to jail
Right, but
without
why?
charges.
Sorry.
Arrests were people for marginalized communities, literally half of them.
But why violence? Why you think the new rules would increase the violence?
Of course.
Yes.
If I can just answer a question.
Please.
BPD has a legal monopoly on violence, okay? And whereas before, the legal claim is that the false arrest was based on informal rules. You're being asked to vote on this today because your body is, statutorily created. This will prevent anyone in the future from asking for the justice that Dr. Kadu is asking for. If people engage in free speech, constitutionally protected free speech activity in the market, political speech, where they choose, not these bullshit free speech zones, you're threatening them with police violence. The police will come arrest them. If they still want to exercise their free speech, the police will use violence. The only way violence will not happen in that situation is if the person who is exercising their free speech, self-censors themselves and chooses to stop. This is why I say that it's a threat of police violence.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Kathleen. You are now the head of the new CAST system, C-A-S-T-E. I want to be clear for everyone here. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what this board is. I'm going to read right from their website about us. The Board of Park Commissioners is a policy-making authority for the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department. The board is comprised of 4 members appointed by the mayor. The board meets and so on. Okay, so you're an executive board. You're not a legislative board. That's the point. What you're making is policy for city employees and city contractors like these vendors. You have no authority over the rest of the people in the market. That's for city council to take up. If you want to pass Jim Crow rules of behavior, you need to put it before the city council. There were no laws on the book. I've got the city attorney, Mike Rourker, on audio. I'm happy to release it to anybody that wants it, where he admits these rules weren't even written down. I mean, how was Kara supposed to know? I mean, this is so ridiculous. And here you are, you're caught up in these lawsuits, and you can't say, I'm sorry. Why can't you say, I'm sorry? The Board of Park Commissioners have zero power to make, much less codify law. Their policy and policy changes apply only to the conduct of city employees, city contractors, not to the public at large. What is happening today at the Bloomington Board of Park Commissioners meeting is merely another attempt in this failed calamity of errors to intimidate minorities and their supporters with threats of false malicious arrests over bullcrap internal policy changes not based on any law or municipal code.
Thank you.
May I go ahead? So what I want to point out that you have clearly stated, that you do not have the right to restrict free speech. You have consistently made an argument that this is a First Amendment issue and you are not permitted to restrict free speech. This policy actually restricts free speech, so that's our first disconnect, right, in logic. So when I brought up the issue of recruiting in the market, which we know is going on, then you said again, well, we can't restrict their free speech in the market, which actually is not true because legally you can restrict hate group recruiting in a city market. That's your choice. That's the city government's choice to do that. So my question to you is, since we're going back and forth on we can restrict free speech, we can't restrict free speech, and it's getting pretty fuzzy, why don't we just not restrict free speech? Let the hate speech be free. Let the protest speech be free. Then we're being consistent. If you want to make a First Amendment argument, we can all get behind the First Amendment argument. Free speech. Let the white supremacists say their piece, let the protesters in to say our piece. And then let's see who in this town is against white supremacy. But as long as you're suppressing the protest speech, we aren't going to know who's really against white supremacy. And that is incredibly dangerous. So free speech, let's do it. Thank you.
And I have a question. Oh. So recruiting, you're mentioning recruiting. So is there evidence of how many times this happened in the market?
I think we have to be careful about trying to codify it. So thinking about how we would approach research, quantitative research or qualitative research. And I don't think the quantitative piece of this is the critical piece. Because if we've seen it once or twice, I think we can pretty much be sure that we haven't seen it all. So we have seen it. And no, have we counted it? No, I don't think it's possible to count it. Recruiting tactics are very nuanced. And I mean, let's just think about what we do as Bloomingtonians in the market. And I think of politicians who are walking through the market every Saturday recruiting voters. I think it would be hard to follow a politician. You'd really pretty much have to follow that person around in a weird stalkery way to start counting how many voters they picked up in the course of walking the market and shaking hands. So no, we don't know how many times, but we know it's happening and we know it's being successful because of the visibility that the national white supremacists are giving her. So if she weren't successful, that wouldn't be happening. Yeah, thanks for your follow-up question.
Provide us with your contact info. We will send you a multitude of examples. And unfortunately, we can't quantify it to a T, but there are a multitude of examples.
Happy to send.
On that subject, I believe that there are multiple reports going back at least a couple, 3 years, even before these protests started, which goes back to my only other comment here, which is that even if you all were to apologize, if you're going to go ahead and pass these rules, there's no way that we could accept or believe such an apology because you clearly do not respect our freedom of speech. You have so much discretion to choose which rules you enforce, which is really clear when Charlotte Zitlow wants more time or when you want to rearrange the order of the items on tonight's agenda. Changing the rules is no problem. But then you have a vendor contract that says that recruitment cannot take place for crazy organizations like this, that the vendor assistants who work in the booths have to have their real names given, and that no transphobic, homophobic, or racist speech will be allowed. And I understand the contract also says that vendors are not allowed to sue the city. So Sarah Dye's farm has broken all of those rules, and you have not enforced the contract against her, and yet you're bending over backwards to make new rules to make it illegal for us to call for a legal and moral boycott. It's just unbelievable to me. I don't understand how any of you sleep at night.
Hello, my name is Robert Hall.
Everyone else allowed you to speak, so could we please allow you to speak?
I may be the only speaker in favor of your rules tonight. I had never heard of Schooner Creek Farm, Sarah Dye, or identitarians before July. I am a conservative Republican. I started reading everything I could find about the controversy at the Bloomington Farmers Market. I even interviewed Sarah Dye and asked her directly if she was a white supremacist. She said, absolutely not. I've asked her 3 times, same answer. Then I observed what was going on at the farmers market. Racist graffiti, Antifa, protesters, intimidation, harassment, false accusations, misrepresentations, loss of attendance, invasion of privacy, doxing, I was doxed, vandalism, and intolerance. The only hate I saw displayed was by opponents of Sarah Dye. So I invited Sarah Dye to speak at a meeting of the grassroots conservatives at the Ellettsville Library. Unfortunately, protesters disrupted our meeting. More hate was displayed by them. My conclusion is our freedom is more threatened by these radical protesters than by Sarah Dye. I call on the Park Board to approve farmers market rules of behavior that restricts protesters and boycotting to Information Alley. Thank you.
Thank you. Successful recruiting right there. I mean, if you want to see,
You got it. You got Robert Hall. He asked 3 times, you said no.
Okay, so I'm speaking because I did not want Robert Hall to have the last word. So everyone in this town tells me that this town welcomes protesters and protests. But what I've actually observed is that when it comes to anti-racist work, it comes with a caveat. As long as you don't make other white people uncomfortable, and as long as you don't go against beloved institutions. And so I've been told to worry about the KKK instead, or like more overt forms of hatred. But the biggest concern to me right now is the civil and polite face of white supremacy that identitarianism presents. Of course, right nowadays, an identitarian, as they call themselves, they're not going to tell you that they're white supremacists. They're going to say, oh, I just don't believe in, immigration from countries that have people of color. Just the other day, one of Sarah's friend Lana, who runs Red Ice TV, which is a white supremacist network, said, oh, we should just close the borders to Chinese people because they're bringing coronavirus. And the Black Death used to come from Chinese people anyway. And as a Chinese person, I obviously do not like that. They're not going to tell you that they're not going to tell you that they're Nazis. They're not going to tell you that they're white supremacists. They'll just tell you that they want to return America to its majority white roots. And I would like you to think about what that means. And I would like you to think, and I hope that you know that that face is a lie.
I just want to say that the moral questions of the last century was, what if we had done something? And here we are. Maybe there's not a legal way to say your beliefs are more than just beliefs. They are potentially violent. They have a plan, an agenda. But at the same time, how can we legally spend so much time protecting them and then say it's not okay to say no? This is a moral failure, and it breaks my heart.
Can we call for a revote?
Okay, all those in favor of the approval authorization of the farmers market rules of behavior, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Opposed? The food and beverage artisans have been here many meetings now and coming back and waiting for us to review some information about their pricing structure, which is really important to their getting ready for an upcoming market. So we're going to go over to C14, have Becky Higgins. This is not a vote, but a review, since we left this off from last month.
Good evening, Becky Higgins, Recreation Services Division Director. Staff is here to request the Board of Park Commissioners review the attached options for pricing of the food and beverage artisans for the 2020 Farmers Market. Staff will seek final approval at the March 24th, 2020 Board of Park Commissioners meeting. The following is a summary of different pricing options. The various revenue lines are deposited into farmers market revenue. So looking back, food and beverage artisans have requested to lower the fees they pay to participate and sell at the market. In the past, the fees included a weekly stall fee ranging from $10 to $499 and 10% of gross sales paid to the Parks Department monthly. These revenues were designed to help farmers market meet their cost recovery goal of 100% as set by the Board of Park Commissioners. This is the 2019 budget, and in 2019, as a result of discussions between artisans, staff, and the park board approval, the stall fees were removed, and the food and beverage artisans continued to pay 10% of gross fee. The food and beverage artisans requested lower fees in regards to the 10% of gross revenue in order to be more equitable with farm vendors. The Farmers Market Advisory Council recommended to park staff that their fee be lowered to 5% of gross sales. Complete budget information for 2019 was not available at the time of that recommendation. In consideration, the park staff took a closer look into the budget information from 2016 to 2019, as well as the projected budget for 2020. In 2019, the cost recovery goal was not met. In fact, the budget operated at an overall deficit of $55,250, with a cost recovery of 63%. Budget information used in the past several years was based on direct costs only. If both direct and indirect costs were used, which is what provides a complete picture of what it costs to run a program, the cost recovery rates would have been lower than 100% for 2016, 17, 18, and 19. Lastly, we are projecting that 2020 farmers market budget will operate at a deficit of $37,756, which equals a cost recovery rate of 76%. In the past few years, the farmers market has not met cost recovery goals. To lower the fee more would only make it more difficult to meet these goals. Staff will continue to review costs yearly, and in preparation for 2021 market season, staff will review both farm vendor and food and beverage artisan fees in the effort to make these more equitable. We asked the Park Board of Commissioners to review the proposed options for 2020 and determine what percentage of gross income be used for the food and beverage artisans. Examples of 10% of gross, that's what's currently up there, which shows a projected deficit of $37,756 and a cost recovery of 76%. And I would point out that the artisans' portion of the budget is 44%. If you go to the next one, which should be a 6% reduction, or 7.5, then the deficit is $50,756. Cost recovery drops to 68%, and the food and beverage artisans would be paying 37% of the total income that comes from market. If you go to the next slide, it will show 6% of gross would equal. Yes. Yes. So 6% would equal a deficit of $68,556 and a cost recovery of 63%, with the artisans paying 32% of the total overall revenue. And then a 5% drop in the gross paid would equal a deficit of $64,156 and a cost recovery of 59%, with the artisans paying 28% of cost or of revenue to market. And then lastly, we looked at what if there was a flat rate and if the booth paid about the same amount as farm vendors, and you can see that drops us into a deficit of $440 and a cost recovery of 48%. So what we're doing is offering these options to you for you to take back, review, and then just let us know how it is you would like us to handle that. The food and beverage artisans also requested and did receive their name changed from prepared food vendors to the food and beverage artisans, 2 seats at the Farmers Market Advisory Council, which you voted on, increased marketing and social media presence, and addition to the farmers market overall mission statement. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Becky. And I think it's possible some of the prepared food vendors, artisans would like to speak.
No, after I finish with her.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, well, thanks. It really does help.
Sorry. So we have that, but I wanted to start with the slides that were up there before, if that's okay. Yeah. Let's start with let's just do the 5% and the flat fee ones. Okay. Just the 2. Okay, all right. Okay.
Okay.
I'm Eric Shedler. I'm a vendor at the Bloomington Community Farmers Market with Muddy Fork Bakery. I appreciate you taking the time to consider our request again, and we're going to try to be as brief as we can. I first just want to go back to the slide that Becky had. This is the proposed 5% rate. You'll see on the highlighted part towards the top that the prepared food vendors still contribute 28% of the budget. And I want to remind everyone that we are 12% of the vendors. So what we are asking for is equity and to pay the amount that it costs the market to provide our space. And then if you'll go on to the next one, the flat fee, and I think the amount that you have on there might be less than what we proposed paying. And this one, we provide 11% of the budget out of 12% of the vendors. Then I want to go to the spreadsheet that I emailed you guys ahead of the meeting, and hope you had a chance to look at it. I just wanted to highlight how those different fee levels, can you see it? How those different fee levels affect the vendors and what we pay. Yep.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Old school, okay.
Okay, so the first line there, that's the average costs that we would be paying under those percents. I think that's important to recognize. Currently, under 2019's revenues, which were down, of course, we paid on average $114 a market, and that's compared with $18 or $10 for a farm vendor. And as you go down, you see even at 5%, we'd still be paying an average of $57 per market, which is above the cost that we estimate the market spends per person. I'll let the rest of the people say more.
Thank you.
the fee, the flat fee, after the 5% column?
So the last column is a $37 flat fee, which is what we estimated it actually costs per booth to operate the market. It's not the same as the one that Becky put on the flat fee. I think that was an $18 a week on her slide.
So, hi, Maria Piccoli Dolci, Maria Carlassare. So, again, we're here to ask you to try and follow the Farmers Market Advisory Council recommendation that was made in December of lowering the fee of the food and beverage artisans to 5% this year, and then lowering down to a flat fee for future years. In order to reach a fair and equitable financial responsibility among all vendors. All vendors at the farmers market are equal. We're not different. We contribute to the farmers market, to the success of the farmers market in equal way, as much as every single farmer. So we need to be treated equally. The 10% fee applied to us on gross sale is unfair. Even under favorable market conditions that we had in the past, it was still not enough to reach the 100% recovery cost. That gives me the idea, the idea, yeah, that this system will not work. Even if we sell tons of food, we will still be struggling with the 100% recovery cost. So that means that there's something wrong in the system, in the financial system of this market that needs to change. In addition, this system is also very risky. It's not resilient. It relies heavily on only 12% of the vendors to get 50% last year of the revenues. Super risky. The problem is very complex. It calls for a new strategy, and the new strategy should acknowledge the need for a more fair distribution of costs. We need to start from there. So please consider this.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Louise Miracle. I'm a vendor with Pie First Bakery, and we've had a lot of numbers kind of given back and forth here. And I just wanted to say, in summary, there are 104 vendors at the market, and approximately 14 of us are the food and beverage artisans, so it's 14 of us. We make up about 12% of the vendors, but we account for around 52% of the revenue. And you might ask, well, how is that possible? And it's not because we employ more people. It's not because we're working any harder. It's not because we're using up more and more ingredients or supplies for our products that we sell. The reason that we have come up with the 52% of the revenue is because we are taxed 10%, which the growers have not been. And that's really kind of it in a nutshell. That's why we're asking you to get us in the same line and on a line of equity with the growers. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Katie Meislowick, and I own Need More Coffee Roasters, and I'm a vendor at the Bloomington Community Farmers Market. And as you may remember last month, one of the points that I wanted to just make clear to you guys was the fact that we're not meeting the cost recovery, but also the fact that it's, like Maria has stated, it's so risky because weather is one thing, social climate is another thing that can't be predicted, and if you're relying on a percentage of our sales as opposed to a flat fee, like the farmers pay a flat fee, and that means that the budget can be predicted as far as what they're going to pay. And with ours, you can't predict that, and that does make it shaky. And on top of that, it's not fair or equitable. So I would just like to ask that we get to a part where it's a flat fee so that the city can run the market in a predictable way and make it fair for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I would recommend to the board to vote to lower the fees. I'm not a vendor myself, but just someone who's, concerned about them. And, I know that the person presenting it has talked about the need to, to make deficit or whatever. And I think we have to think about what to cut as opposed to what to charge. I'm not sure if the increase, the 20-fold increase in policing has much to do with the farm's budget. Like, I don't know if that's to do with the city or the parks, but, stuff like that is something to think about. There's a lot we don't agree on, Kathleen, but I'm glad you voted yes. The last time I watched the Cats video for the last time this item was considered, and I'm glad to see you vote to lower the fees again. And I thank you, Israel, for abstaining and looking more into the matters. And I hope, Les Coins, that you could, have a better reputation with fairness and equity, and that you vote to lower the fees, not like last time where you voted to keep them. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Hi there. My name is Josh Hermes. I'm a vendor at the market with Wild Alaska Salmon and Seafood. And just to kind of reiterate some of the points my fellow vendors have stated, we're certainly not asking to, wipe away all the fees. We absolutely want to pay our way. We just ask that it be in a more equitable and fair representation of the actual market. I believe one of them stated that, there's only 14 of us, and we contribute a large part of the budget, or the revenue for the market comes from us. It seems a little bit lopsided, and I hope that you take that into consideration, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Mann.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, please, go ahead.
Suzanne Mann. I'm a member of the Advisory Council, but I'm here speaking privately. And predictability, I think, is probably one of the words, since everything else has been addressed. A budget is something you have to be responsible to, but Parks and Rec is a big department. And, moving money around is something that's very difficult to do, but I'm sure that you deal with that a lot. With predictability, I was thinking you have the golf course. And if you have a very rainy, cold season, no one's going to play golf. If it's very cold and rainy, no one's going to go to the pools. And so you get less income from entities like that. But if you have a bad season, their prepared foods are coming in with food that they've made. They purchased ingredients, they made the food, they come, and there are no buyers, or the weather is bad. They take it on the chin because the predictability is unpredictable. So they go home and they eat a lot of whatever they have, or sell it at a reduced rate. But with the predictability, if you can look at it as a whole department and just know that it's a challenge for everybody. And I hope that you can find the funds and move the funds around to make this more equitable.
Okay, thank you. All right, we were just reviewing on this issue, and we've got great information from Becky now, so we can discuss that and look at that more and come back to it at the next meeting. And I think can we rapid fire through the?
Looked at staff, and they all nodded their heads that they
really?
are
Okay.
willing to stay and get their approval.
Now we'll see who's really dedicated to stay here for the.
Thank you to staff, too.
All right. Okay, so we'll do a quick run through then. We're up to C4, review of the contract with Monroe Convention Center.
Good evening. I'm Ashley Spurgeon. I'm the Community Events Specialist, and I recommend the approval of the contract for the Monroe Convention Center for the Children's Expo. The Children's Expo is for adults and their children, and it's been going on for 20-plus years. To provide services for them, we have a couple free screenings, health screenings, and there are some summer camps. We have a summer camp area, baby clothes, bakeries, doctors. There's so much more there just besides those few that I've named. And the cost of the rental will not exceed $3,000. And I will answer any questions that you guys have.
Okay. You know, I know it's been very successful over the years, the Children's Expo. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And so we're continuing, and this is the rental agreement with the Monroe Convention Center. So you want to move?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Any public comment or question? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Motion carried. Thank you. And next up, we have a contract template for a Fair of the Arts.
Hello, my name is Crystal Ritter. I'm the Community Events Coordinator. I am here tonight to recommend the approval of the Affair of the Arts Exhibitor Agreement and exhibitor information for the 2020 Affair of the Arts season. This agreement details the policies and expectations set forth for both the city and Affair of the Arts for the 2020 season. Affair of the Arts is a fine arts and crafts fair that takes place the second Saturday of every month, May through October. It is held adjacent to the Bloomington Community Farmers Market. It was established in 1998. And the contract for this year just includes updated dates and some updated information to clarify the jury process for the artists. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Crystal. No questions? All right. You want to?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Any public comment or question? Seeing none, all those in favor of the contract template for a Fair of the Arts, please say aye. Aye. Motion carried. All right. And next up, the Sassafras Audubon Society Bird Fest Partnership Agreement, which I believe, did I read that? Is that going to be in Switchard Park? Did I read that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
If you approve it today. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Steve Cotter, Natural Resources Manager, here seeking your approval for an agreement with the Sassafras Audubon Society for Birdfest 2020. This will be the third year. The first year it was held at the IU Research and Teaching Preserve. Second year it was out at Karst Park, and they're really excited about the possibility of doing it at the pavilion in Switchyard Park. It'll be an event where people can come and learn about birds. IU researchers who are working on bird-related issues will be there. There will also be groups that can help people understand how they can better care for birds. So we think it's going to be a great event, and we're eager to work with them.
Plus bring people to Switchyard Pavilion as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, okay. Any comments? Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Any public comment or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carried. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And review of the contract with Purcell Monument. Barb Dunbar.
Hi, Barb Dunbar, Operations Coordinator. Staff recommends approval of this contract with Ronnie Purcell, or Purcell Monuments, to perform monument repairs at Rose Hill and White Oak cemeteries, funding source being from our general fund cemetery budget. The department has been very successful in securing these funds for several years now. That allow us to make annual headstone repairs at both of our cemeteries. Over time, earth does settle, and stones begin to show signs of leaning, or they completely tip over. In order to prevent the headstones from disappearing into the earth or incurring damage from grounds equipment, we attempt to reset and or repair as many headstones as time and budget allows us to. This annual process has been vital to the preservation of some of our city's most notable and historical markers. And there's a photo, I chose that photo because all three of those will be on the list for this year to be straightened. Those are very large ones, and they require large equipment that Purcell brings in. We typically can get 20 to 30 stones, depending, the larger they are, the more expensive each stone is. So typically anywhere from 20 to 30 stones are reset and straightened every year.
And I'm guessing by the look of those go back to the 1800s,
Yes.
perhaps? Okay.
Yes, some of these, yeah, late 1800s, exactly.
Okay.
That's in the old Spencer edition.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right.
Move.
All right. Any public comment or question? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. All right. Thank you, Barb. And next we have review of an alcohol permit for community events at Switchyard Park.
Hi, Leslie Brinson, Community Events Manager. I am here today to ask approval for sale of alcohol at the Parks and Recreation events taking place only at Switchyard Park during 2020. Staff will utilize outside vendors to provide alcohol permits, secure serving areas where individuals 21 and over will able to purchase and consume their alcohol within designated areas. The Parks and Recreation Department would like to offer alcohol sale at specific events managed by the department and taking place at Switchyard Park. Staff will work with outside vendors, one at a time per event, for the sale of alcohol. These contracted vendors will be responsible for following requirements of our internal alcohol permit. This includes obtaining an approved application from the State of Indiana Alcohol and Tobacco Commission and providing a copy of that permit to staff prior to the event. The contracted vendor will also be responsible for securing the service area where individuals 21 and over will be able to purchase the alcohol and consume it. Vendors will pay the department 10% of their gross sales on each event, just as we do with other concession agreements. Events in which we would like to have alcohol sales include, but are not limited at this point, to trivia nights in the park, the performing arts series concerts at Switchyard Park, movies in the parks at Switchyard, and any Yappy Hour events at Switchyard Dog Park. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, so that would be just for 2020?
We are going to do it during 2020 on a trial basis. We will reevaluate at that point and bring it back to you if it is successful or make changes at that point. So right now we are just looking at 2020.
And is there any limit for vendors or?
At this point, we would just be looking at one vendor per event and spreading those vendors out amongst different vendors per events.
Okay.
And the Parks Department will be providing the security and working through that component as well.
And just to note, we've had some, not exactly the same, but similar situations. I believe there was alcohol at Garlic Fest, there has been. and-
People who have used special use permits in our parks have been able to come to you and ask special permission
Right.
for alcohol in the parks. Garlic Fest is one of those
Okay.
examples in Waldron, Buskirk, and Chumley Park.
Yeah, / 3rd Street Park, yeah. Okay, all right. Okay, great, thank you. So you want to?
Second.
Any public comment or question? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. All right, thank you, Leslie. And service agreements? Okay.
Turnbull.
All right.
And the Sports Division. So this is staff is recommending approval of 7 service agreements, and these service agreements will come out of regular general fund budgets in the Sports Division area for specific areas when and if the service is needed. And the list here includes Terminex International, Steiner Sports Training, Inc., Keller Heating and Air Conditioning, Inc., Deem, Inc., Steve's Welding, Young's Plumbing and Mechanical, and Price Electric. And the background of this is similar to a lot of service agreements that once we have these service agreements approved and on file, then staff can contact any one of these service providers for the different areas that they work in for needs at facilities.
Okay.
So as emergencies come up, these are
Right,
really
these are the
helpful to
people
have
to
in
call.
place.
Right.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Do you want to? All right. Any public comment or question? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. All right, and next we have TLRC Front Counter Project. Yes, from Megan Stark.
Yes,
Hi.
I'm Megan. I'm the membership coordinator for the Twin Lakes Recreation Center, and I am requesting approval for the complete update in color scheme of our front lobby counter. So the reconfiguration of cabinets, some glass panels, the flooring to be replaced, and security system put on both of the front door and the back door so that it can be locked off from the public whenever it's not in use.
Okay, and is there a little bit more background about why updating the front counter area, or?
Yes.
I mean,
so-
it looks nice, but I just.
So I believe that this will be the first time that it has been touched since at least we've had it. So it's extremely worn. It does not function well for the staff anymore. One example is our front desk staff in the evenings have a large basketball program, the Bloomington Youth Basketball. And to get the basketballs, just because of how everything is configured within there, they have to go all the way to the back, almost to the concession stand, to get a bag of balls for each coach that comes in.
Wow.
And so it pulls them away from our front desk counter and doesn't allow them to do their job properly anymore.
Okay, well, that's a
And
good
I will
example.
also add, it's probably 21 years old.
Oh,
Because
well,
we've owned
okay.
the property for just over 10 years, and it was 10 years old when we purchased it, so.
Okay, it's time for an update. Okay.
Just a comment of support. I was definitely behind this. I've been in a lot of fitness centers, kind of largely on the West Coast, just to see what they look like and how they.
And to work out.
Yeah, no.
No.
And see how the customers respond to it. 6 in total. That's where they're doing a lot of this stuff. And I came back here and looked at that and said, this has got to change. If we're going to be competitive and try to draw in customers, and they have to see that, it's not going to work. So this is just, to me, another effort to draw more people into this because of, they just spent a lot of money cleaning the place, not cleaning, but putting new equipment in, servicing the equipment, a lot of nice improvements, and that's the first thing people see.
This will actually match what our previous remodel of our upstairs locker rooms, and then the upstairs weight room, all of that. The color scheme has been brought downstairs into the cardio studio, and eventually will make its way down into our group exercise room. So this will kind of make us a much more cohesive look when you walk in the door.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Second.
Any public comment or question? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. All right, and D. Tuttle has Bloomington Soccer and MC Tennis.
I do. I am Dee Tuttle. I am the sports facility manager at Frank Southern Ice Arena, Winslow Sports Park, the pools, and Alcott Park. So today I'm seeking approval of 2 new partnerships. And the first one is the partnership agreement with the Bloomington Football Club to provide a soccer program at Winslow Sports Complex. And the Bloomington Football Club has previously played at Alcott Park Monday through Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it's headed up by a gentleman of the name of Jeremy Sweet. And he provides soccer for the beginners, and he also provides soccer for the more experienced player. And they are wishing to move their program to Winslow Sports Park on one of the senior side fields, playing 2 to 4 fields at once, Monday through Thursday.
Okay, and I know there's been, well, just continues to be growth with the soccer program in town.
There
so-
does, yes,
Yeah,
there is.
Yeah. All right, yes.
Use of the program will be scholarships or?
I'm sorry?
Low prices, they're affordable and effective.
Right. He will be a user group of ours, and so with this partnership agreement, he sets a price, and then he will pay so much per hour to rent our facility.
Okay.
It's worked well, I imagine, in the past.
It has, yes. They have been a really, really good user. We think that this partnership agreement can do nothing but increase in numbers, and it's just good for both sides.
Okay, thank you. All right. Yes. All right.
Second.
Any public comment or question? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All right, motion carried. And MC Tennis?
Yes, the second partnership agreement is with MC Tennis, and this partnership is to provide tennis lessons at Bloomington High School South and/or Winslow Sports Complex. So once again, MC Tennis wishes to provide affordable and effective youth and adult tennis lessons. They have a lot of expertise in the sport of tennis. It'll be headed up by Matt Corey, which is the boys' head varsity coach at Bloomington South High School. So we expect this program to grow in numbers as the seasons progress and provide some income back to the Parks Department. We will retain 20% of all of the registrations.
Okay. All right.
NC stands for?
Matt Corey, who will head the tennis program up.
So there is adult, youth, but
Youth
children?
and adult. He will provide 3 different sessions, a session in May, a session in June, and a session in July for adult, beginner, and intermediate players, and then for youth, beginner, and intermediate players.
Right, but no children, just youth, children.
Children ages 5 to 17, and then adults from 18 over.
Question for Dee. Dee,
Yes.
You've seen somewhat of a fall off in tennis.
We have, yeah, Les, you know, sports is cyclical, and so in tennis, we have seen a decrease in the lessons that we have actually offered to the public. So our idea was with this is to bring some enthusiasm back into the sport and a larger exposure.
That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. We need to develop young players and whatever. And that includes golf and other sports.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Any public comment or question? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Dee.
Thank you.
And poor Joanna Sparks. Invasive plant removal is very important, bringing up the rear at almost 7 o'clock.
There we go.
All right.
Very important issue.
It is.
Well worth waiting for.
It is.
Thank you very much for your patience. Okay, Joanna Sparks, City Landscaper, here today once again to talk to you about the importance of invasive plant management on our properties. And I'm proposing that we hire Ecologic LLC once again to run their forestry mower to remove several acres of Asian bush honeysuckle at the very south end of the Beeline Trail. And just south of Switchyard Park, and this is very exciting. If this project is approved, this will be the culmination of the Clear Creek Trail, the complete mowing of all the available areas along the Clear Creek Trail, the Bloomington Rail Trail, and the Beeline all the way to Reverend Butler Park, and we're well on our way north there. So we've covered over 7.5 miles of the trails with the forestry mower, and we're actively managing several of the original area. We started in 2018. We've performed 5 different treatments on that, and we are actually seeing natives return, and we planted several thousand trees, native trees there last spring, and we'll be planting more trees in the coming spring. So anyway, we're very excited to just clear the decks, get this invasive woody material out of the way, and bring in the natives.
Okay. All right. Excellent. How many trees did you say, Ben?
We planted over 3,000 trees along
Wow.
the trails about a year ago.
Right.
Yeah, and we have over 7,000 on the slate so far ordered, and we hope to do more. Yeah, and we also, just as a plug, we'll be doing 2 tree plantings in April. One of them will be Saturday, April 18th at the Olcott Park. We'll be reforesting about a 2-acre area that we mowed with the forestry mower a few weeks ago. All those calorie pears are gone. And we're also on the following day for Arbor Day, the following Saturday, the 22nd for Arbor Day, we will be doing another tree planting, and we're not exactly sure which location. But yeah, if you want to come plant some trees, yeah, stay tuned.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Move.
All right. Second. Any oh, yes, sorry. Yeah. Public comment or question?
My name is Amanda Sheridan, and I'm speaking on behalf of the local Green Party. We are in support of efforts to remove invasive species, including plants as well as animals and pathogens that are harmful to local biodiversity. These species can potentially harm agriculture and small business, water quality, and the ecosystem as a whole. The local Green Party is assuming due diligence has been taken in selecting Ecologic as a service that contributes to this purpose.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, all those in favor of the contract with Ecologic?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. All right, Paula, do you have anything else to tell us about?
No, just that your next meeting is March 24th at 4 p.m.
Okay, all
Thank
right,
you.
thank you, and we're adjourned.